Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it is going to be, I mean, a lot of people are going to choose the gap year. All right, guys, I think we are live. So we should be starting this excellent conversation that I'm hoping to have with both of you. Abhinay Basan and Akshay Gurnani, welcome. Welcome to Tell Me About It. This is episode number 9. It's called, tentatively called, we always call everything tentative. It's called What Does It Take? Right? What does it take? So we wanted to meet, yeah, we've been meeting a lot of good people, weird people, interesting people. So we wanted to meet a couple of excellent young super achievers, right? Which I'm like really setting you up for a nice thing now. Now you can blame me or hate me later, but the whole the whole idea is that we just wanted to figure out, what makes you tick, because I think that there are two kinds of people in the audience, right? People who have been war veterans who actually have lost touch with the younger generation of leaders and how they think and how they actually are interacting and making this world what it is, what's and all. And the second is the younger guys who are looking for newer inspirational models, right? Which obviously they're going to find in both of you. So we're just trying to figure out who you are and what makes you tick and what can serve as an inspiration. So having said that, welcome. We've got normally I introduce both guests, but what I'm going to do is, because you are in a situation wherein you actually have belong to two separate lists of 30 under 30 achievers, man, I'm like really jealous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you uh, introduce yourself, actually talk us through very quickly through a journey that led you to where you were and your interaction with that list that you made. So who wants to go first?
Um, I don't mind taking this off the bat.
Yeah.
Coming down from the cloud that you put us on back to Mother Earth. I
Okay.
think for me, a quick summary of my journey would have been: I'm actually an economist who's entered the field of advertising.
Yeah.
I started off post my post graduation in economics from Warwick. I came to India and
Yeah.
started off really as a person who wanted to know the business more. And
Hmm.
that's what my first role at Cara was all about, where I
Yeah.
understood traditional media planning and buying, and then I went into strategy thereafter. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to co-found Data Sciences because the
Hmm.
organization had a need, and I sort of displayed the skill along with my boss. So like 2 or 3 of us got together and
Yeah.
co-founded the Data Sciences team.
Yeah.
And ever since, I think it's been a great run of 4 years. Every day has been a learning,
Yeah.
and I think when it comes to list, right, whatever the list may be, I think all of that is just bells and whistles and ancillaries that come onto it. But the core is that I was fortunate enough to really be doing what I love doing, and
I think we are losing you
yeah,
probably. Well, we'll let him come back.
well, I'm happy that it got recognized in some way.
Abhinay, I think we are losing you a little.
Okay, let me just retry this.
The last sentence. We
Okay,
while you
can you
while
guys
you
hear me now? Is
much
it
better.
better?
See,
Okay.
you were reaching the punchline and then we lost you.
So the punchline is that yeah, I'm really fortunate that in
Yeah.
some way it's been recognized more as more from an industry standard. So
Yeah.
just like happy to be doing what I'm doing. Over to Akshay.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to leave you that easily, but Akshay, if you can quickly talk about yourself.
Sure, sure, cool. So, I'm thorough Bombay bred. I haven't studied abroad or anything. So,
Hmm.
5 years in HR college, undergraduate and post graduation, I did in HR. I did my Bachelor of Management Studies. Typically, like any 20-year-old, I was confused whether I want to do finance or marketing back in the day. I chose to do both. I majored in finance as an analyst. Absolutely hated it for 6 months. I did that job. I mean, I learned a lot in those six
Yeah.
months, and I absolutely loved the learnings. No,
Yeah.
I did. I did.
Okay.
And I think in 2010, towards November is when I switched to marketing, and digital marketing was at that point in time sort of the new buzzword. So actually, not even digital, social media marketing, SMM as we called it back in the day, was the buzzword. So I joined a growing agency back in the day. I started off as a content writer. I used to manage brands online reputation, typically, jack of all trades, because you didn't have any mentor, you had no one to teach you anything in marketing. You just had to go and do whatever you could, possibly. But I think as the industry grew, as the entire digital sphere grew, I grew with the company. I spent about 2 years in Delhi then. I was heading their North India operations for this company. In 2014 is when I came back to Bombay, and then I joined my two partners, Harshal and Sohel, and we began Shebang. So Jan of 2015 is when we started Shebang, and it's been a good 5.5 years now. So I've turned 30 now, so I can't win anything else now. I think the Forbes 30 and 30 has evaded me, so that's fine.
I think 30 is a terrible age, because at 30 you feel very old. I think I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make you feel really bad about things. but
It's fine. I treat it like it's a new age now, because my next threshold is 40, which is 10 years away. So I feel quite young now, right? From that perspective.
Very nice. But both of you have avoided this question, so I'm going to make it a little more explicit and ask you this question, right? So what does being in this list, Akshay, you said that, okay, I'll start with you, maybe, Abhinay can come in a little later. Let me start with you. Say, what does being in the list mean to you? So obviously you've moved ahead and you've become 30 and all, but I just wanted to know, in the scheme of your life, okay, what does being in a list like this mean to you? You can say nothing at all. You can say absolutely fantastic, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, I won't lie. It does mean a lot, because it's a way that people are recognizing the effort you put in. As an individual, I've never worked for the awards. I think I'm a kind of a person who works really hard. I work the long hours. I try to do the best that I can do in whatever I do. If the accolades come along with it, great. I mean, I'm more than happy. But I've never worked for an award per se, or worked to be on a coveted list of that sense. So I think it's coming out of these lists is more like a pat on the back saying you've done a good job and you're doing well, so continue what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, in that moment, for a few days after, you feel very nice about it. And then it goes into your LinkedIn profile, and it goes on to a couple of other bios somewhere. But I think after that, you're back to normal life, you're back to doing your own job, and you're trying to do something better for yourself. So I think these are short-lived moments in life which you celebrate, the milestones, which I call them. But I don't live by them. I believe that we've got to do good work and believe in the work that we're doing. And if the accolades come along the way, so be it.
So tell me now, this is a very nice answer. But what did you actually feel when you got that?
Okay, okay, sorry.
I'll just finish this answer. I felt happy. So that I felt happy. I really felt happy. I think my family was very proud. My team was very proud. And you obviously gloat in the glory of it, because it's a list which has some amazing names on them. So you're like, okay, I think I've done something good to be on this list. So your ego gets a boost up to an extent.
Excellent.
And yeah, I mean, that's where it ends, to work the next day and you're back to doing your job, right? So it's how it is.
No, absolutely. Good. Now that was the real shit, man. That's good answer. Abhinay, what about you?
Yeah, so I mean, completely echoing what Akshay said in his sentiment and the feeling. I think it's a great moment of pause that gets recognized in many ways, that a lot of people sort of recognize, and like Akshay says, it goes on to the various profiles and stuff. But at the end of the day, comes in the next month and the next moment where you've still got to deliver on your results. You still got to do what you got to do. And it's just like a motivation to move on towards the next set of growth as an individual.
No, but Abhinay, now let me ask you. You are clearly a science nerd, right? You're someone who has actually literally, combined the two forms. You study consumer behavior and you study data analytics. You've been an economist, and now you're kind of doing a manthan out of all of these three things and trying to figure out a lot of interesting questions for yourself and for the clients that you serve. In this, you're clearly using your prefrontal cortex. You're like really into your head, and then suddenly something like this happens out of the blue, right? How does it figure in your life?
Right. I mean, of course, like Akshay said, right? It's like someone sort of giving you a hug. You're actually doing something that we recognize that is actually of good value, and that has sort of spurred me on in many ways. But yeah, of course, like any other great success, right? There's always scope for improvement. There's scope to do something else, and it just sort of motivates you to say that, okay, you're probably figuring out and solving the right problems, and that's essentially what I'm after, right? So you're solving the right problems. Those problems have created tremendous value, and maybe you've created something great out of it. So it's a good recognition from that point of view.
Right, interesting. But you're also somebody who is an employee, unlike the Shebang co-founder that we've got over here. You're an employee. So how does it come? How do you come across as to other people? Do people get a little jealous? What happens?
I mean, it'll be incorrect if I had to discount that fact. I'm not sure jealous. I guess everyone has great intentions at the end of the day. Of course, there's a feeling of for me personally, the way I've seen it is that there's more of a feeling of camaraderie. Like one of us has sort of gotten that, and many of us can sort of
Dude, I'm telling you, people will be jealous as shit. I'm telling you, that's what happens. You're being sweet and all that, but I'm telling you, that's what happens. How do you deal with it?
For me, I think I've had a great support system, so I'm not going to discount them at all from that point of view. And I think it really goes for any achievement, right? And even like getting up and going to office every day, as long as you have the confidence that you have a great support system, I think those are the only people who are answerable to, in my opinion. And that way, I think it's a great strength. So helps you.
Okay, I'll let you go with that. Yeah, here's a different question to both of you. Obviously, you guys are not the same people that you were, say, 5 years back or whatever, whenever you started your journey. And there's a related googly coming along with the question as a later thing. But here's the first initial question. Do you think that you've developed a unique perspective because of your journey? Of whether it's through your education and then your work experience and all the stuff that you've got. If you have a unique perspective, what is it? Can you share it with us?
Cool. So, taking this off the bat, I think it takes me back to a quote from Steve Jobs, right, where he actually said that you look at things backwards and then you figure out that the dots connected. But while you're sort of in it, you really don't know what you're doing. Interestingly, I studied economics. I focused a lot on statistics and mathematics, so I never really studied. For me, when I was doing it, there wasn't a hardcore data analytics or data sciences course. In a way, it's very new from that perspective. So I think it's economics and consumer understanding is what I was really after. Statistics sort of and 2 years into my career, nearly 2 years into my career, I figured out that you could combine these two together to create something more meaningful and more efficient. And I think that's essentially what led me even to where I am today, so to speak.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think for me the journey has been from being an employee to becoming an employer. So I think for me that big journey has taught me a lot of things. It's changed my worldview overall because now I know I'm many more people, right? That's very important because now it's not that I'm responsible for a team of 10 people. Now it's 350 people across the board, across the company, right? So I think for me that perspective has changed as to how you've got to respect people, respect teams. How you got to keep people motivated all the time. And I think it comes back to what we believe in a lot is building culture, right? Very importantly, because you've got to give people a safe space to work and feel motivated every single day to come and do something for you, right? Something for you, something for themselves. And why we say something for themselves, because they've got to see growth in what they are doing also, right? Today I'm on a 30 and a 30. I want my team now to start moving into these lists also because eventually it speaks volumes about how we've built the company, right? That if the team themselves are featuring on these amazing lists, winning awards, I think it speaks a lot about how we as individuals have given them their opportunity also. So I think my worldview from that sense has changed towards how we, talk to people, attract the right kind of talent, and actually respect people. And that's a big part of my job because right now, everything depends on the team, right? You are as good as the summation of all the things that your team does. So that's
what I find. Okay, what I find really interesting. You putting on your founder shoes have certainly gone into the culture aspect and the setting up of aspect and all of that. While on the other hand, Abhinay is focused more on delivering value, which is around the data and the consumer and stuff like that. So it's fascinating to see how you have evolved and your unique perspectives on this
Yes.
world.
So
But both of
Siddharth
yeah,
actually tried like maybe a slight addition to that.
sure.
In many ways, I call ourselves, and my boss also does actually, we call ourselves a startup with because it's a
Mm,
team that we had a free hand in a way to sort of found it and create it. So in many ways, it's much like a startup where we're not at the scale of 350, we're at a scale of 15
mm,
this year, and somehow we sort of doubled every year. But
yeah.
we do give a great deal of focus, and I think like Akshay said, right, one of the greatest motivations, and if you ask me, my KPIs are more centered into how can I make the next rung of leadership ready, so
Mm,
that there's always that fallback in some
sure.
ways. It also is like a great opportunity for growth, right? So in that case, those investments really make you look at things from a different perspective to create something that is more resilient, and that is more firm, so to speak.
I understand. Now let me ask you the googly part of the question, right? So do you guys, none of you said, oh, you haven't done your MBA. Okay, what do you guys think about MBAs in general? Do you think it's important, or do you think it's complete fucking waste of time?
Should I
Akshay,
take that
you
one?
can take that first.
Yeah.
Go,
Okay.
go.
Cool. So I'll draw a parallel to my life. Okay, so that when I had the opportunity to go to Delhi to start that Delhi operations, I was
Yeah,
in the middle of starting to do the MBA. So I
yeah,
was like, typically like every 23-year-old, 24-year-old, ke boss abhi, you've got to sort of tick that thing off a list thing. MBA to karna hi hai, right?
ha, ha, ha.
I'm so glad I didn't do it. If you ask me, I saved those 1-2 years of time plus money, because
Yes.
I feel that what I actually learned on my own,
Hmm.
doing what I was doing completely on my own, was maybe a lot more than probably whatever I've got in the MBA. Not discounting the importance of MBA, because I haven't done it, so I don't know what you can get from it. But
Sure.
I just felt like the real world experience is so much more richer. Um, I don't want to dissuade anybody from doing the MBA, because I'm sure many people who've done the MBA have also done things in life. But I just felt like at that point in time, at that moment, it didn't feel necessary.
Hmm.
So if in a student's life he feels like the MBA is going to add value at that point in time,
Yeah.
he should do it. But
Okay.
for me, I didn't feel the need at that point in time. And looking back, I have no regrets.
Hmm.
I think I was talking to you about wanting to come to MICA and actually study at MICA, ISB, wherever else. But
Hmm.
I thought, okay, I didn't get the opportunity because I had something else that came my way.
Yeah.
But looking back, I mean, no regrets, and
Okay.
I think I've learned a lot in my own job also. Yeah.
Interesting. And Abhinay, what about you?
So for me, I think the largest and like the biggest business school is the real world, and
Hmm.
that really teaches you a lot. If there is a specialization required, like for example, I genuinely wanted to learn more in economics, which is why I actually did a post graduation in economics
Economics. Yeah.
after Xavier's. So that's where I feel that you can enhance yourself from a curriculum perspective.
Hmm.
I have nothing against the MBA. In fact, I'm constantly tussling. Well, I think I'm fortunate to not have reached 30 yet. So Akshay is probably in a different position, but I'm still constantly tussling whether I should invest myself in an MBA or not. But it's more about what you want to take out from the program, and
Hmm.
if it's more of understanding the tricks of the trade, I think there's no greater teacher than the real world from that point of view.
Okay, so I've got one more question on this front, like on the 30 under 30 list, right? So, and these are separate questions for Akshay and Abhinay. So I'll ask Abhinay the question first. Did you? So if I have to look at 30 under 30, right? It is given to individuals for the work that they do over the years. Now, do you think that an individual kind of eclipses the team dynamic? I know that it's a bit of a question that I asked a little earlier, but I just want to press on this issue. I'm trying to understand how a young leader like you deals with an award like this, because eventually you got to go and work with your sort of entrepreneurial startup-y team, as you said, but within a large organization. So what do you do the next day? Do you think that you have to take additional measures to say the right things, or do you say fuck it?
I mean, it's not an either or in my mind. I actually think that it's just about being you as an individual. And I think for me, fortunately, I've been like the circle that I've really cared about has been more than supportive than anything else. So from that lens, I don't think I sort of felt anything that I should have or shouldn't have. But it's about like I think Akshay also said, right? A very core part of it is to make sure that your peers ultimately, if you see as an individual, you might do great things, but at the end of the day, everyone is a team player, right? I mean, Dhoni could be great in batting and in wicket keeping, but he might not be a great bowler for which he needs one, right? So it's always going to be about the team. And I think every individual accomplishment is more a testimony to the team's effort as well in many ways, right? So it's just about making sure that everyone sort of reaches the same milestones, that everyone has an ambition to lead.
All right. So I'll let you get away with that. I'm going to. It's a nice well left by you, since you like cricketing metaphors. It's a good well left by you. I'm going to ask Akshay this question now. Akshay, did you ever think that you're going to win an award? In the sense that did you actually think I'm going to be on this damn famous list? Did you work towards being on a list? Because you've said this, that people should go on lists, they should aspire, right? And that's where this is coming from.
Right. No, actually, I mean, to answer your question, no.
Okay.
I never really thought that I'd be on a particular list as such. It's always been a question of saying that, can you work hard, can you do your best job, and then if you get on the list, you get on the list, right? So you always aspire to win accolades for sure, but never really targeted a particular list as such, if you ask me. So I've always said we've got to do the best work as a team, we've got to do the best, be remembered for the best kind of work also. But it's never been about a particular list, if you ask me.
Okay. So therefore, then why do you ask your team to actually look at these award lists?
So see, I'll be honest with you. There are different people have different motivations, right?
Sure.
And for us as leaders, it's important to identify which person is motivated by what. Very honestly, like some people in my team are motivated by just getting a mention on WhatsApp, right? So we have a large group on WhatsApp, and just getting a mention on WhatsApp for them is a motivation enough. For some people who want to have that medal on their mantle and actually show the fact that they won an award, for them that's a motivation. For some people, it's monetary motivation, right? They work towards a target, they work towards wanting to earn more at the end of the year after meeting a target. So I think for us it's very important to identify what motivates different people, and which again comes from how are we building that culture within the company where we identify groups of people who are motivated by different things. So
interesting. Okay, so good. So that's where you're looking at. I'm going to continue asking you questions because I think Abhinay has some network issues. So we let him sort it out while Colosseum sorts it out with you. Let me ask this question.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
I can't see you particularly, but I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Because even I can't see you, but I can hear you well. So that's
all right. Good. So let's just continue as if it's a podcast, right?
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So here's the question for you, Akshay. Right? I've heard so many good things about Shebang and the kind of work that you've done, especially the Prime Video campaign. Okay. So can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. So we work with Amazon Prime, for some of the show launches. So the most recent one being the Patal Lok launch that we did. So we are basically on board with them for a couple of key initiatives that they want to run, which could be innovative in that sense. So we did this entire 8D audio experience basically, wherein we actually scripted out an entire like a story. When you hear with your headphones on, sounds like it's actually like an 8D experience or 4D experience or 3D experience, whatever you want to call it. But the thought was to make it as immersive as possible, because in case if you've watched Patal Lok, it's really immersive.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is.
The storytelling is amazing. So we try to replicate the kind of storytelling that is there in the show, but give it a more immersive experience within your phone itself, right? So again, it was something new. not too many brands have actually dabbled too much with this 8D audio kind of a thing.
Right.
But we felt that Amazon being like a player who is into innovating with content, and they do a stellar job on digital. We said let's pitch it to them and see if they'd be interested with it, and they loved the idea. So I think it worked pretty well.
So do you think it actually helped you to?
Okay,
So hi. So Abhinay seems to be back. Hi Abhinay. I'm just finishing a question with Akshay, and I'll come to you.
Sure.
The question that I wanted to ask you as a follow-up, Akshay, is: do you think that there's obviously a big creative aspect to it, but so if I have to look at technology, if I have to look at creative, if I have to look at marketing, there are a lot of aspects to digital marketing, right? How would you actually split the pie, particularly in this campaign, but in general, the kind of work that you do with Shebang? I just wanted to know how your mind thinks about a subject, a functional subject. Yeah.
Sure. So you're saying like a mix between creative and technology, right?
Correct.
I think very interesting question. I'm glad someone's addressed that, because I think all of us as digital marketers have to start thinking a little more tech driven, be it using tools, be it using innovations, because the thing is we are dependent on platforms today who allow us to do different things in a more creative manner. Now the fun of it actually comes when you're using the best parts of the tech along with the best part of storytelling to combine them together into something much more experiential in that sense. So be from a tech perspective, be it even like a chatbots, AR, VR, even using data for that matter. I think these are trends which are only going to keep getting bigger and bigger as the industry grows, because I think the need for all of these are to give the user an immersive experience. I think what happens is nowadays there's so much content being generated. You've got to break the clutter. You've got to stand out in this clutter, right? And
so
I think technology.
Sorry to interrupt you. Then do you actually start with let's say the question, how does technology interrupt you, or do you actually say, okay, what's the story? So how does the thought process start?
Yeah, I think at the core we're still storytellers. So we've still got to find the consumer insight. We've still got to find what's going to make the consumer tick. We've still got to find what's going to make the consumer interested in that creative. And if you can do it with tech as a part of it, I think it amplifies the entire experience. So I think at the core we are still storytellers trying to talk to your consumers, right?
Okay, Abhinay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear. I think technology is not on my side today.
I'm telling you, this is the first time I'm doing any sort of show with technologists, and this is what happens. I'm just kidding. So here's a question for you. Okay, the question is that if you have the look of consumer behavior, so if you have a consumer behavior on one side and you have marketing and data and the rest of it on another side, I would like you to identify a great consumer insight that you cracked based upon this excellent combination of skills that you have, and if you can just talk us through it.
Okay, so interestingly, more than consumer insight, I think the role that we sort of play with the interplay of technology, right, is trying to find out who the right audience is. So rather than an insight, who is the right audience for a particular brand. Now, interestingly, about 3 years ago, I had this chance to work with one of our teams in Germany. And we were really pitching for like a lottery account. And I knew nothing of the German market, and I knew nothing of lottery in their country as well, right? But because of the way we were able to analyze Facebook's information and Google's information in a way that we hadn't done before as well, what we were able to do is, against gut, we were able to find out audience cohorts that the brand had not even looked at. Like, for example, it would have seemed very strange for me to say if someone interested in lottery might also actually be interested in soccer and Germany. I mean, of course, and in beer, sorry. And of course, like from a cultural point of view, we know that it could go into that direction, but you never really associate it with gambling or lottery in that lens, right? And I think the beauty of actually analyzing or looking at data and massaging it in a different way really unveils certain information pieces that in some sense did really well for that campaign, because just implementing whatever planning logic that we had, we were able to instinctively deliver way more value than what was previously being done. So I think that's how we sort of look at it. It's not like a it's not that either of them replace it, but it's just how you can make use of what you have.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you mention it this way. Here's the question that I have as a follow-up for this. If you the question that I asked with Akshay was that, do you let technology lead or whatever? With you, do you let data lead you, or do you let something else lead you? What's your process? Well, again, we were trying to understand how you think. So I'm just trying to understand, what's your process? Do you start with data first and then you become all creative, or do you start with what about this, and then try to figure out where data fits in?
So in many ways, I actually start with my gut. I feel like, okay, if this was a brief and I was a consumer of that product, right? What were the things that would have motivated me or wanted me to purchase it?
Okay.
Data in many ways is a validation of your gut, or in some ways it could go against your gut, which means that you just need to get a little more research. Probably there's an insight that you're missing. And I think that in general has been my approach when I was looking at it from a strategy function. Now the function that I play is more of a product and a platform function, but earlier in a strategic lens, and when I help brands on their strategic narratives, I think this is in some ways the process that I follow.
Interesting. So for somebody who is a data scientist, or somebody who you actually follow your gut, is it a conscious decision, or is it something that you just do naturally?
I think in many ways it's something that I do as a default, because data can also be misleading. For example, algorithms, right? Everyone says that our algorithms out there to eat us up, are they really going to replace what we do? But an algorithm at the end of the day is created by a person. And if you create that algorithm with a certain bias, right? Then it's not going to give you the best output for whatever you do. So first, your gut is a good indicator of whether a piece of information actually makes sense or not. And then you develop that gut by backing it up with data. And if there is like an outlier or something that you weren't aware of that comes out from it, then it just means that you need to strengthen that logic, and which is where that research angle, like I said, comes in to sort of support that entire thing together.
That's interesting. Akshay, for a related question for you. In fact, it's coming from the feed over here that I've got. When Shebang runs campaigns for, let's say, Godrej Properties or UNO, how important is reaching the relevant customers, and how do you ensure that? How do you, let's say, I'm not asking for your secret formula, but what do you do to just have what's your approach towards a problem that your client brings you? Yeah.
Yeah. So to your question, I mean, absolutely. I think getting the insight bang on is the beginning of everything that you can do, right? And a lot of times that either could come from the client, where the client could feed you with, research that they've done, or we try talking to consumers who are actual consumers of the brand, or could be also, surrogate consumers through our own network of people. So we do a lot of, forms, for example. We circulate forms among our teams.
Yeah.
We have friends and family sort of fill it up. But generally, what we do is that we never start an ideation without having some insights. We work very closely with the Google team also to get insights from Google, which could be again intent-based behaviors. What are people searching for within our cohorts? What are people who are interested in, say, hypothetically, real estate? What are they searching for on digital, right? Try getting a few insights from there. Try getting a few insights from Facebook also. You can see, if I take the core audience of my brand, I can see what are the interests that this particular audience also has on digital platforms. So
right.
We try building these cohorts. We try building, a pattern, which could be some could be primary, some could be secondary. We work with a couple of tools as well. But eventually, once we have some data-driven insight, is when we actually start with the brainstorming process. Obviously, generally, this will happen when we're doing larger campaigns, which give us the liberty of time. But typically digital, you have nothing more than like a week to plan the entire campaign and design and execute, right? So in those cases, we go with instinct, we go with gut, we try seeing whatever we can find online itself, could be secondary reports also for that matter. But I think if we get the time and clients allow us the time, we do spend a lot of time on just getting primary data also, and then build from there.
I hear a lot of angst in your hustling. Actually, it is like you always are stuck in these tight deadlines and stuff like that. But that's like part of and nature of the game. A question for Abhinay. Okay, Abhinay, when was the last time you changed your mind about your gut because of what data showed you?
I think it's pretty much happening on a regular and on a daily basis with
Yeah.
respect to brief, because there's always something new that you're made aware of. Like for
Yeah.
example, yesterday I learned that people who are interested in Xbox are actually also very good, are now into very heavily into mobile gaming as well, right? And
Hmm.
normally your mindset would sort of say that separate console gamers versus mobile gamers, right? So
Correct.
I think data in some ways gets you aware of it in many, like it gives you a greater insight, and it's not like a today or a tomorrow perspective, but it's more like a brief specific for that client, for what he's trying to get,
Hmm.
for whatever information you've asked for, how what is the different learning that you're getting, and that could work for any campaign, however big or small.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So here's a question for both of you, because you're both in very similar fields, or maybe even the same field. I would say, if I have to look at it broadly, like marketing communications.
Yeah.
Here's the question: as young leaders in marketing communications, you may have seen the writing on the wall on the way in which things have been moving so far and the way in which things are going to move in the future. What do you think the change is, if there is any? I mean, you are free to say that, hey, shit, you're talking bullshit. Nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be the same. If there is a change, what is the change, and what do you think an agency or a company should be doing to address that change? And I'd like Akshay to go first, and maybe the data-driven Abhinay can go later.
Yeah. I think one biggest learning we've had as an agency during this lockdown COVID time
Yeah.
is that you've got to diversify. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Like for example, you can't be too dependent on one kind of service A, and you can't be dependent on one kind of industry B. Like so for example, I know a lot of people who only service hospitality. Now,
Yeah.
what is this guy going to do now when there's no restaurant or no hotel open, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I know people who only do say video marketing, right? Now the thing is brands have reduced their spends considerably
Yeah.
creating content, and the thing is you can't even shoot large production films anymore. You've
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
rely on the more animatics or self-shot kind of content. So people who are too dependent on one kind of format or one kind of service are sort of out of work right now. So I think so that's more from the current perspective of how we are seeing the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using this more like an example because I think a lot of people who are tuned in right now must be saying, okay, fine, what do I do right now? Because right now are
Yeah.
again unprecedented, really difficult times, right, for all of us. So I think diversification of services plus industry is very important. But I think also going forward, we're all questioning, whether we'll actually go back to sitting in office, whether things are going to be remotely done. So this entire thought of also, using technology to bring teams together is going to be very important, right?
Yeah.
And not just bringing internal teams, but also working with clients to actually co-create and build things, right? So I think it's a very interesting time for us to think and see: do we actually need such large spaces? Do we need to actually have a physical office? If we do, are we having flexi work hours, for example? But why I'm saying this, it might not necessarily be linked back to a particular service, but I think it's just for us to think about. And going forward, I think technology will play a very, very important part of this. And I think to the heart of it and whatever we do, I think we all are again in the space of telling stories. So data in that sense, primary research, data science will always be something which we can never really avoid, because at the end of the day, it is all data driven, whatever we do online. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks. And Abhinay, what do you think?
So for me, I think more than, like, of course, looking at spends and the way the industry is moving, that's one aspect of it, right? But I think what the time like this has really showed us to focus on is primarily more efficient ways of work, right? We've got to find better ways of delivering the same services in a much lesser time-consuming fashion, in a much lesser effort-consuming fashion. And I think that is something that's clearly come out from the entire period in which we're in. I think in some ways we've had a head start of investing in that 3 years before, so we've had some of a lead time out there. But clearly, so to speak, what's going to happen as soon as things are done with lockdown is that it's like Akshay said. I mean, maybe we need to rethink work. We need to look at flexi hours. We need to get the right systems and the right processes in place, but we've got to find ways of making them more interconnected than they are or they appear to be. And I think that's going to be a very key area of focus, and to drive those things like data, it for me also it's a buzzword. Being a data scientist is actually a skill. I think everyone should, just as we had literacy as language, I think coding and just analyzing and playing with data is going to be more like a literacy element, and that's the role that I see it. So the data sciences or a data scientist function is no longer going to be defined by a particular boundary. So from that point of view, I think we've got to find better ways of future proofing talent. We've got to find a better way of future proofing organizations. We've got to diversify. We've got to focus on efficiency. And I think those are areas that even the industry is moving in. Everyone, of course, at different paces, but that's the general direction that people are going to follow. I hope you got that.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think so that is.
Hi guys, you can probably ask questions to each other right now. I think there's some network issue.
Okay, that's interesting. But are we both visible to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Nice. So Akshay, when do you are you guys? I know Harshal was in office last week, but are you guys looking at opening things up?
So, I mean, things are open, but nobody wants to go to office, obviously. So, I mean, the office is open for everyone to come, but I don't think anybody is going to be ready for at least.
Games and Pokemon Go, I think, was the largest example of that, right? Where AR really came into the forefront in terms of the consumer interaction with brands and with stuff. So I think that it's going to build a new way of interacting with products. It's going to be a new way of even discovering new things, right? That's why Google is focusing so much on the Lens product and getting artificial intelligence into discovering brands by just hovering your phone over it, right? So I think AR VR is already making waves in that, and I think it's just going to continue and be amplified because of the circumstances.
What do you think the trigger event is going to be for AR and VR to actually come in there for the early majority? Right now, you might have early adopters and innovators kind of connected to that. What do you think can be a trigger event? Like, for example, the pandemic was a trigger event for a lot of the Zoom success that Zoom is having, right? This is a hint to Colosseum to shift from Skype to Zoom. Okay, all right. So yes.
So I think AR and VR is largely dependent upon the ecosystems that are actually helping promote it.
Yeah.
Like for example, now that Instagram and Facebook allow for AR to be a part of the filters, is a step in that direction. I think it's obviously we are heavily reliant on the platforms. While we can go out and create amazing content, if nobody has the platform or nobody has the hardware to actually consume it, it's absolutely of no use, right? So I think more than an event, I think the triggers right now is that the platforms are evolving towards giving us the opportunity to actually create content in this AR and VR space, right? So nowadays anyone and everybody is making AR filters for clients. It takes about 2 days to make them. It takes about 12 hours to get updated onto the platform. People are making AR filters for birthdays, for that matter, right? For their own birthday, they're making an AR filter. So again, the barrier to entry is so low because anyone can go on to like an AR Spark for Facebook, create their own filter, submit it, and it's on the platform. So I think it's about how the platform is evolving to give us these opportunities.
Wonderful, well put. Okay, here's a question that I've got. Sorry to cut you, but here's a question which I wanted to ask you before, because I can understand that we might have lost a little bit of time. This might go a little bit ahead of time, like 6 can become 6:05, just so that you guys are a little thing about it. See, the whole point of this conversation, I'm just bringing us back into this, is to understand how you guys think. Right. So a lot of it has been in 2 areas. One is how you think about your leadership, how you think about the stuff that you've done to reach here. And the second is how do you think about your functional subject? Okay. Now, my question is, suppose a young person, younger than you, somebody who's turned 30 or just, maybe 27 in Abhinay's case or whatever, you get somebody saying, what do you recommend I do? I want to be broadly in the area that you're in, or maybe in a related area. What do you recommend me to learn? What do you recommend me to practice?
Okay, so if you're looking at something specific to what I do or the field that I'm in, I think the advice can be very different. But a general principle that I've followed is that really follow what you would enjoy, and that's why I think in many ways I'm in the field that I'm in and the area in which that I'm in, because I found, and I think I've been fortunate to know very early on, that consumer behavior and understanding that is something that I was passionate about. So it led me to take steps to actually get to where I am in some form, right? So
Abhinay, let me stop you there. You're absolutely right, but you're an exception, in the sense that you are in a situation wherein you're not in the confused lot. There are so many people, so many students who keep telling me, right, I'm confused. Sometimes I feel that they like being confused because that allows them the liberty to chill.
Right.
I don't know what.
No, you're absolutely right. So, like Akshay had his fair share of internships or jobs that he didn't like. I had a fair share of that as well. Like I worked with Deloitte. I figured out that very early. I think I got the clarity that consulting is not something that I want to invest myself in right now or at least for the next 5 years, right? So I think it's all for someone in that mind space. I think it's essential to just try anything, right? And figure out, just like take one step in one direction. You'll either identify whether you like it or you don't like it, and then in that case is where you course correct or you continue on the path that you're in.
Okay, all right. But specific skills?
Specific skills, I think it really depends on the line in which you're going. So, for example, like I said, for me, coding is now going to become literacy in very ways. So that is a skill that you must have. But definitely you need to learn more about, like, even in that Deloitte internship, right? I had to understand what the hell a consulting firm does. From that point of view, because I was fresh. I mean, I was like in my first year of college. So I think you have to understand where you're taking that step also. Like, just don't go off a cliff. But yeah, figure that out first.
Akshay, what about you?
Again, I mean, it depends on the role highly, but I think my suggestion to youngsters who are at least dabbling with thinking of digital marketing being one of their fields of expertise, I think what they've got to do is join a place which is allowing them to do more than just their sort out job, right? I think it's very important that you try different things and grow into it, because again, when you're 20, 21, 22, you're too confused. You have no idea what you want to achieve in life, because this is the first time you're actually getting into the real world, right? In that sense. So I think being a part of a growing team, which will allow you the nimbleness and the opportunities to actually experience and grow into different things is very, very important. So again, working with startups allows you that experience, allows you the flexibility. So I think flexibility is very, very important, because you might be put into different situations, different roles. But I think when you start dabbling with different things, you'll actually start understanding what really is your calling. A lot of times I see people coming in as content writers into Shebang. They spend a year as a content writer, but they move to the video team because they think that, okay, production is something which really interests them. Or we've had people come in as a content writer and they move to the media team because they said, okay, I love writing copies for media. Okay, now let me see how I can also buy media. So I think it's about finding your calling when you're in a space that's allowing you to experience more than just doing one thing. And another very important tip, I think, to every youngster is that, at least spend 2 or 3 years in that job. Don't keep jumping from one job to the other, because it takes at least those 2 years to do justice to what you want to even do in that job, right? And obviously, like if the company is not really giving you any opportunities, it's time to leave. But if the company is good, the culture is good, and if you are being given new things to try, do it. But at least spend 2-3 years. Then don't keep switching for the sake of because I'm getting a little bit more money here, or I think these money conversations are more secondary. I think in the formative years of your life, it's more about the experiences. So
interesting. Okay, so a follow-up question on this is that if you have to, so you've given advice to somebody younger than you. If you and this is a question for both of you, but I'll start with you, Akshay. If you have to give advice to somebody who's older than you, say suppose somebody 10 years elder to you, okay, what would you say?
I mean, depends on what he's doing right now.
So let's say that he's in a typical midlife crisis. He is in a situation wherein he doesn't know what the hell is happening to his life. What is all this data sciences, digital marketing shit? You get what I'm saying, right?
So, very, very often we get people who apply to us for a digital role, but they are like 45 plus, okay, or 40 plus for that matter. And they've had like 20, 25 years of experience, and they come with more experience than all three of us partners combined, But I think the kind of experiences that they've come with are absolutely amazing. So, whenever I have conversations with them, generally it might not work out because maybe their expectation of salary is too high and we can't afford them because they have been along in the industry for too long. But typically my suggestion to them is always that, that it's not difficult to understand digital. And today, trust me, anybody and everybody is on the platform, right? Like everybody has a smartphone, everybody's consuming content. I think it's the older folk who actually come with a lot more insights, which some of us younger guys don't get, The way they think about an insight is actually a lot more evolved in the way we think about it, which is why we rely a lot on tools and data, while these real life experiences to actually give insights to us campaigns. So I think for them, the tick box is that they understand insights well, they understand the human behavior very well. But for them to learn a new skill, which could be, digital marketing, could be media, is not difficult. Honestly, there are enough and more resources to sort of learn online. If you come into a company which has an open culture, who's teaching the employees, they learn on the job. So my suggestion to someone who's 40 plus is that digital is not that difficult. I think very, very importantly, as storytellers, you've already understood how consumers work. Now it's about learning something more, which can come on the job also,
See, you're absolutely right, and I'd like Abhinay's take on it. But before Abhinay comes into the thing, my take is, a lot of times it's not about the fact that digital is something that is learnable. I think it's more to do with the attitude that that person brings onto the table.
Yeah.
And that's probably where shit hits the fan sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Abhinay,
I mean, I'll draw a parallel actually. So like
sure.
one of the guys, Sushant, I'll name him. He might kill me for this, but he's older, much older than us, and he comes with a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience. He's worked with Dell and a bunch of other brands in the past. He's sort of leading the Bangalore team right now. So and he's looked up because people respect someone who comes with so much experience, right? He had zero experience in digital marketing, but in the past 2.5 years, 3 years that he's been with us, he's obviously learned the tricks of the trade. But people respect him for the maturity. Clients respect him for the maturity, right? And everything else that he's learned on the job.
Wow. Okay. No, shout out to Sushant. I think that's an amazing thing for him to do. So I don't think he'll kill you. Hopefully, Sushant, if you're listening, give him a chance. Okay, Abhinay, what about you?
So Sid, I think in many ways, one part of it you answered in the sense that it requires a mindset shift.
Right.
But largely, I think the trend that well, at least is gaining steam in the West, and I'm pretty sure it exists out here. It's just not so prominent. But a reverse mentorship is something I feel that would in many ways be able to make that happen, because often while I play a role in this process called operational excellence. Just what I said before is one of the ways in which we're trying to do is we're trying to find out more efficient ways of work, and that requires not just like the breadth of experience but the years of experience as well for you to identify which is the right way the organization should really be looking at technology and stuff and processes and all of that, right? And I think a core of my interaction has been always, while of course I feel that I'm learning constantly from people much more senior, have had a greater experience in a particular line of business, but often they're also being exposed to a completely new way of thinking, right? For example, getting automation through Microsoft Power Platform, right? Very specifically putting is something that a lot of people are now being aware of, right? But it's something that the data sciences team did work on in the past. So in that way, cross-learning and reverse mentorship is something that I feel would future-proof us as individuals, really, irrespective of the age in which you're in, because you're always open to new ideas, irrespective of where they're coming from.
You're a very nice person, Abhinay, is what I can say. A lot of people are assholes, man. They're not nice people like you, and so they will not listen. But I agree with you. The advice that you're giving is very, very good. Now, here's so I told you that I'm going to ask a googly or two at the end of this, right? So the googly is that if what's the question I haven't asked you, which you'd like to answer? And both of you. And ask the question and answer it.
Wow. Okay then. Yeah, I mean, maybe the question could be, if we weren't doing what we are doing right now, what would we be doing?
Good one. All right. Okay.
Probably I would have done an MBA for sure.
Okay.
And probably would have also tried having like another startup it could have been in the finance space. You never know, right? Like I probably wouldn't have switched a job from finance to marketing if you asked me. But yeah, I think in that moment I thought marketing made the most sense. But I think if I always had the vision that I always wanted to lead a company. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur for myself. So it could have been actually in any role. It could have been in any industry, but for me, the excitement is of being an entrepreneur. So I think I would have done something. Maybe again, could have been in the tech space, could have been in the automation space. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Abhinay, what about you? What's the question? What's the answer?
Okay. So to answer his question, I think one field I would have really liked to do.
No. Don't answer his question. Answer your own question. What's the question?
I was actually going to give you like a bonus round. I was going to answer his question and pose another question.
Okay, go for it, man. Go for it.
Great. So answering his question, I think one area that I would have personally liked to dabble in would have been law. I think it's a very interesting subject and there's a lot to learn from it. And there's a lot that you can do with your business by just getting a better grasp of the law, right? So I feel that that's something that I would have probably picked up. Maybe I can still pick up on reading, but as a field, I would have really liked to get into that. Now asking the question rather, and then answering it myself. I guess what I would also like to know from Akshay though is that what is the one thing, what's a hidden talent that people don't know about?
Good one. Yeah.
So it's not very hidden, but like I love photography, so I'm like I really pursue that very very religiously as much as I can. It's not a hidden talent per se, but yeah, it's something which I do, and that keeps
But
me.
you're talented. No, you're talented in this. I can't photograph for nuts, man. So that's why I'm asking.
No, so I actually utilize my Instagram handle to only publish my photography work.
Nice.
And my LinkedIn is for all my professional work. So I keep that
personal
kind of
branding.
distinction. So you won't find any 30 under 30 on my Instagram. It will be only on the LinkedIn basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And Abhinay, man.
Great. So one thing that I feel that I've really discovered recently is maybe I feel that I'm really good at teaching and conveying. So I think that's.
So I'm going to call both of you.
That's skill that I'd like to improve on as well.
Yeah, I'm going to call both of you to some institute or the other. Here's my next googly, and after that one more, and then we're done. Right? Any mistake that you've done that you'd care to admit?
Mistakes.
No, just one. One is good.
I mean, yeah, I have made mistakes as a content writer back in the day where I've posted a wrong post on a wrong brand handle.
Oh man.
And obviously Steph discovered it, so I've deleted it, but it was there for some time.
Yeah, I can that's rough, man. Thanks for sharing. What about Abhinay? What about you?
Okay. I had a mistake that my boss identified, which I didn't know it was a mistake until it happened. But so we were playing with databases. It was like an entire new concept to me. I was learning a lot on the job as I was starting out myself in this in the team, and I actually started off a server without knowing that I had to turn it off. A very rudimentary skill. And that sort of went on, and then soon at the end of a month we got a bill. Fortunately, it wasn't a significant amount, but we got a bill for it. And I sort of admitted to it, saying that I didn't know that I had to, if I wasn't using it, I was going to be charged for it. But well, I think ever since then I had to more than make up for that mistake.
So what's really interesting, and I'm going to give this as feedback to you guys, and also to all the listeners who are. See, the mistakes that you admitted to are very genuine, honest, but also at the small stage. Even the server thing, it's a small stage. And that means a super high level of awareness that both of you are showing. And most of us we ignore these kind of mistakes, and then they become bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the mistake that can fuck up your career, really. These kind of mistakes just help you grow. They just make you eat shit a little, but besides that, it actually helps you grow. My last question to you guys, okay? The last question is, what do you, and you can answer it in 1 minute or less. When you wake up, after you wake up, take before you go on your smartphone, okay? And what do you do to wind down?
So for me, the answer is minus 3 minutes, because I'm already on my phone before I get out of bed. So
no, I didn't say get out of bed. I just wake up.
Okay, I mean, within a few seconds, actually, if you ask me, like my phone is perpetually next to my head, and I mean, unfortunately, and it stems from the kind of work we do, because the phone's always buzzing. It starts at observe 5 o'clock in the morning, goes on to like 2 o'clock in the night, because every brand has 2 WhatsApp groups, one internal group, one external group. Now, when you have 65 brands, so you can do the math to know how many WhatsApp groups are buzzing the entire day, right? So yeah, for me, it's like almost instantaneously, like I'm on my phone, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Okay. And what do you do to wind down before we go to Abhinay?
I mean, I try, even during this COVID time, I've been shooting birds from my window whenever I can. So yeah, I enjoy just like shooting whatever I can. So photography is like one outlet for me to just get my mind off work. And I try reading whenever I can. Yeah.
What's the best photograph that you've taken of a bird?
It's on my Instagram handle, actually.
I'll take a look, man. I'll take a look. Certainly, that's one good way of
which I shot during the COVID. So yeah, you can see it's the lockdown picture. Yeah.
What do you?
Nice. Cool. So for me, I think maybe it's probably an industry thing, but it's like 0.001 second. I think it's more going to do also with the time zones across which I operate. So I think a better question would have been, when are you off your phone?
When are you off your phone, man?
I have like Japan that wakes me up in the morning, and then I have US and Mexico at the other end of the spectrum. So in some ways, it's like a continuous process.
Mm-hmm. So you're never off your phone, basically.
Answering your, I mean, yeah, except like the hours of sleep that I managed to get.
Okay, all right.
But yeah. And coming to your winding down point, I think what I've started doing more in the lockdown period is I took a Netflix subscription, started binge watching shows, and I think I use that as a good switch off.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
He's giving Netflix.
Yeah, he's giving it. well, guys, thank you so much. I'm really sorry that some of it was disrupted by technology, but mine, which is having a moderator-less conversation between two guys. Thank you for your time and your attention and the care in which you took to answer our questions. A lot of wonderful, interesting stuff has happened. I hope the audience enjoyed it. Where can you be found by people who stumble upon this YouTube video? Instagram or
Instagram, LinkedIn, both.
Instagram and LinkedIn. Okay.
Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or they can reach out to you guys, and then you guys can connect them to us.
Certainly, we'll do that. And thank you so much. Any mistake is completely mine. If I've upset you or hurt you or the rest of it, but I had a great time and wonderful. Hope that we can catch up in real life.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us. Nice talking to you.
All right. Cheers. Bye.